Going on, guys? Simple Sports back again with another episode, and as promised, today I'm going to be going over my most recently revised division winner and wildcard picks for the year, and made a couple of changes to the preseason. So I want to go over what I came up with for this first quarter of the season so far. As I said in the past, I like to break the seasons up like a lot of people do into quarters. First quarter is in the books. Second quarter gets started off on Thursday with the Pats and the Colts, and that should be a pretty good game. Really could seal the fate for the Colts, and sort of project the Pats into their usual space in terms of getting off to a pretty decent start on the year. And so with that said, I want to talk about what we've seen so far. We're starting to see the cream sort of rise to the top, right, as they say. And, you know, we're 4 weeks in. Most teams have at least an idea of what they are. Some teams have an idea of what they need to be, and some teams have adapted to what they need to be. And the difference is in the records of all those teams. We've seen teams like the Rams be exactly what they thought they should be, and what they need to be based on what their personnel provides. The same can be said for a lot of different teams. But with that said, like I said, no further ado, we're going to get started here. So let's get right into it. So let's start with the NFC. It is the easiest probably to go through, and so I'm going to start there. And these are no in particular order in terms of seed. I just am going to give the division winners and the two wildcard teams. I guess if you want to put it in that kind of order, I guess. But as far as seeding them 1 through 6, haven't gone that far. The Rams I have winning their division. I think so far they've looked exactly how most people thought they would, which is pretty unstoppable. They score a ton of points, and while they don't have a dominant defense, they certainly have a very good one. And they make the plays when and where it counts most on defense. And so for that, you got to make them a Super Bowl contender, obviously, right? And that's most important. To their benefit, of course, there is zero resistance in their division, especially with Jimmy G going down. I thought he might give them a little bit of a push just in terms of being competitive, but I didn't really think they'd have a chance to win the division. Now I certainly don't. I don't think anyone else in that division can even come close. So Rams all the way there. Eagles winning the NFC East. Originally I had the Giants winning this one, and in fact even going to the Super Bowl, and boy, I have been very, very wrong. The Giants are not very good, but that's something for another day. I don't think that they are. Listen, I think the Redskins are comparable, but I don't think they're better than the Eagles. I think the Redskins are a pretty good team. If you had to make me pick between the Eagles and the Skins, I'd have to go with the Eagles. I think they're better than the Skins. I think their defense is still pretty good, while their secondary is still struggling. I think a lot of it has to do with it being early in the season. I think that there's too much talent on that team for them to not figure it out. And I don't think that there's enough talent within the rest of the division to knock them off of that pedestal. And so for that, I got the Eagles winning the division. Eli's a shot fighter, and I wanted to believe otherwise for my story's sake as far as the Giants and Pats meeting in the Super Bowl. But it's just not working. He's checking down routes that shouldn't even be checked down. He's missing throws. I'm watching guys like Odell and Shepard and the rest of these guys run these really elementary routes. They're running the wrong routes for the wrong situations. Like, it's just all bad. And while I thought it'd get better with a new coach, maybe a little bit of rejuvenated Eli, having added some weapons, no, it's just not there. And the Cowboys, you can miss me with that. The Cowboys suck, okay? Anyone that out there is a Cowboys fan and you think that they are actually a decent football team, you're kidding yourself, okay? They're not very good. Dak's not very good. Zeke is the only thing that's bright on that team, and unfortunately, by the time that they fix the rest of the issues that they have, I think he's going to be going on the downside of his career in terms of running back, because we all know that running backs have a shorter shelf life than most. So Dak's not very good. They're going to be in the market for a quarterback, I believe, at the end of this year, along with a couple of other teams, a couple of other surprise teams that we'll talk about in just a minute. Up next, we got the Bears, and this is about two things, two very simple things. The growth of Trubisky, who I wasn't sold on, to be perfectly honest. I'm still not sold on, but what I do think he is kind of similar to someone like Mariota. Now, I think Mariota's better, but I think what they both are competent individuals, competent humans who are decent enough to make a positive impact on the team. And I think that is something that Trubisky can be. I think Trubisky's talented. Listen, you can say what you want. You don't throw 6 touchdowns without any talent, okay? And so I think there's something there. Matt Nagy, I was not sold on when he left Kansas City. But, you know, I'm not necessarily going to say he's won me over, but so far so good. He's putting Trubisky in a position to succeed, and that's really all you can ask for. But this is honestly mostly about Khalil Mack, because Khalil Mack has put his name, in my opinion, in the discussion for MVP. Currently, I have him third behind Mahomes and Goff. I had Mahomes first. I don't think that necessarily changed after last night, considering he didn't throw any picks or anything like that. You can interchange him and Goff at 1 and 2. Maybe even Drew Brees if you want to throw him in there, and put Khalil Mack in the 4 spot. But he's in the discussion nonetheless, and that's why the Bears are where they are. And, you know, I understood, I guess, just from an evidence standpoint, just from a writing things down, if you will, standpoint, why the Raiders traded Khalil Mack. I get it from their perspective, if you will, but, man, he is wrecking teams, game plans, and every week with a sack and a fumble, just dominating the league right now. If you don't have him in your MVP, at least in the 4 spot, then you're simply a hater or you're not watching the game properly, and that is a fact. All right, I got the Saints also winning their division. I have them as the number 2 seed behind the Rams, I think. Although, like I said, this isn't really in any particular order, but if I had to start it off, they'd be 1 and 2. And Drew Brees is lighting it up. Unfortunately, his defense is getting lit up as well. And, you know, getting Mark Ingram back should help. Him and Kamara should be able to add to the time of possession. Should get them an extra 2 to 3 first downs on 3rd down easily. And that, like I said, should add to the time of possession, which in turn should keep the defense on the sidelines for just a bit longer, which in turn could be the big difference behind turning this team into a Super Bowl contender. Because right now, I don't necessarily know if they could beat the Rams with the defense playing like that. In fact, they won't ever get close to beating the Rams with their defense playing like that. The Rams would put up 60 on them. But if they can get some of that addressed, it doesn't have to be a top 5 defense, okay? But it's got to be better than what it is. And if they can get it fixed, they can get it addressed, I think they could contend for a Super Bowl. No faith whatsoever in the Falcons. No faith in the Bucks. The Panthers I have as my wild card spot right behind the Saints. Cam has looked a lot better so far this year than he has in the last 2, a lot sharper. And what I love is he's being a lot more efficient. He's relying on his weapons to do the work for him, so much more so than he has in the past. And it's allowing him to be more effective and more efficient as the game goes on, both running and throwing the football. And what I really like to see from both of them, as far as Cam Newton and Drew Brees, is I trust that their defense can be good enough that I think that either one of those quarterbacks could certainly take you to a Super Bowl. I think if the defenses for both teams can be good enough, Panthers defense is far, far better than the Saints. but the Panthers' offense is also not quite what the Saints' offense is, and so there's a little bit of a balance there. I think they could be good enough to be a wild card team at the end of the year. I just think flatly the Saints are better than them, and they'll end up winning the division. But I think the Panthers are close enough to them and all the other teams sort of on that same level. And with a better quarterback and, like I said, the Bucks and Falcons, I don't buy at all. I think they get one of the 2 wild card spots, the other one belonging to or that will go to the Green Bay Packers. I don't think Aaron Rodgers is the best quarterback in the NFL or in the NFC anymore, for that matter. I think he's good enough to get this team to the playoffs. I think he's good enough to even get this team to the NFC Championship football game. But I don't think they're good enough to get to the Super Bowl, mostly because they would have to beat the Rams. And if you line those 2 teams up right now, today, I don't think that that's doable for the Packers. A lot of teams are falling short, including teams like the Vikings in the playoffs, which are teams that they'd be competing against directly for that final wild card spot. The Bears, I think, are going to cause them some problems later in the year when they face up again. But the rest of their schedule is pretty easy, and so I expect them to win most of their games. I think they should probably win 7 to 8 of their last games at minimum. And that should be good enough to get them into the playoffs. So we'll see how that unfolds. But Super Bowl contention, I don't think, is in the works for them. But like I said, if you had me pick the 6 best teams in the NFC, I think they got to be one of the 6. I don't know exactly where you put them, but they got to be one of the 6. All right, so let's move on to the AFC. Starting with the AFC South, and I got to go with the Titans winning this division. Look, the Texans are a hot mess. The Colts are a hot mess. The only team that can contend is the Jags, and we've beaten the Jags 5 of the last 6 times. I really don't know what the issue is with people giving the Titans a little bit of credit, but the Jags are ranked 4th in, I think, ESPN's power rankings. The Eagles are like 8th or 9th, and the Titans are 12th. And they beat the Eagles, and they went on the road and beat the Jags. And like I said, are 5 of the last 6 against the Jags, and 3, I know for sure, in a row versus the Chiefs. And one of those, actually 2 of those being on the road, one of those being on the road in the playoffs. And they're, like, I don't get it. I really don't. Like, that makes no sense. It makes no sense whatsoever. And for this team to be 3-1, given the amount of injuries and the poor quarterback play through the first 4 weeks, is incredible. They may be the only true good team in the division, to be perfectly honest. I don't buy the Jags for a second, and certainly not the Texans or the Colts. I believe if not for Mariota's injury, they would have won in week 1. Between the injury and the hurricane and that thing was just a mess. I don't think that game should even count, but it does, and it is what it is. I don't know. They simply are better than every other team in that division. I don't really get the big deal here. Like I said, the Colts are a mess. The Texans are a mess. And the Jags have a quarterback issue. The defense isn't playing nearly as good as it was last year. And they got beat by a quarterback who basically didn't have a hand in Mariota. So I don't understand how they're ranked number 4 and the Titans aren't even in the top 10. Like, that makes no sense to me. Yeah, whatever. So the AFC North, I got the Ravens winning that division, and I had the Steelers winning it before, I think. I don't remember for certain, but I have the Raiders or the Ravens winning it nonetheless. Now, the Steelers are a mess. If you didn't see my or hear my podcast from yesterday, Steelers are a hot dumpster fire of a mess. And the Bengals, while I think they're better and they're pretty good, I don't think they're quite as good as the Ravens, just a notch below. And for that, I got to give the nod to the Ravens in that regard. Next up are the Pats. Look, it's 2018 and the Pats are 2-2 with a win in division and a win in conference, and they still have Tom Brady, and they still have Bill Belichick, and they still have Rob Gronkowski, and they still have Edelman coming back, and they did pick up Josh Gordon, who, if he's healthy, could be a big help. I'm not concerned whatsoever. In fact, until I see otherwise, they would be my pick to get the #1 seed yet again. I'm not sold. I'm not sold on the Dolphins one bit. And the Bills may have found their franchise quarterback for the future, but they're going to get him hurt if they can't and don't fix the rest of that football team because it's not very good. And same for the Jags. They're just not good enough yet. Sam Darnold looks a little jittery and is kind of running for his life back there. Look, the Pats, again, until I see them getting knocked off the throne, they're going to be sitting on the throne for me. So, all right, so AFC West, I got the Chiefs winning that division. Pat Mahomes is the best, okay? Any quarterback since Andrew Luck has been drafted, and even a few before him, he is better than all of them, okay? I've said that since last year before he was drafted. I still believe that, and it's just been confirmed for me for the first 4 games. He's the best of all of them. Aside from all the veterans, I don't think you can find one young quarterback that I would take over Pat Mahomes. And, you know, that's since 2012, really. That's a big sample size, 6 years, including this year. And I think over time he will prove to be better than anyone drafted within that time in the same class with guys like Jared Goff and Carson Wentz, etc. Except I got to be honest, I think he's already ahead both of them. I think he's better than both of them. If I had between those 3 today, I would take Pat Mahomes, hands down. But that's just me. So, you know, we'll see. Listen, the rest of this division to me is some sauce. I don't buy the Chargers. I don't buy the Broncos. I don't buy the Raiders for sure. So we're just going to move on from this one. Because, like I said, the Chiefs are just going to run away with that division. All right, and finally, the 2 wildcard teams that I have are the Bengals and the Jaguars. Listen, while I don't buy the Jags as a true playoff or Super Bowl contender, there's not a whole lot in the AFC to mingle with, and so I fully expect the Bengals to be good enough to make the playoffs. I also expect the Jags to be good enough to make the playoffs. Their defense is going to keep them in a lot of games. Blake Bortles is going to be the tipping point for them, and I just don't think he's good enough to get the job done. You know, and as far as the Bengals, I didn't really believe in them prior to the season, but they look a little bit more buttoned up this year than they normally do, and I like it. You know, they've always had some talent on the team, but they've always had trouble putting it together, especially when it counts most, and doing it consistently. So I like the Bengals as the first wildcard team. As for the Jags, like I said, the only reason I give them a shot is because their defense is real. Jalen Ramsey is that dude, okay? And, you know, I was hoping that the Titans would draft him the year he came out. Fortunately or unfortunately, I guess I should say, as awkward as that sounds, we ended up drafting Jack Conklin, who I love, who came back, by the way, and was healthy for the first time since being hurt last year. But going into that draft, I definitely wanted Jalen Ramsey. He went 2 picks prior, and, you know, today's history is what it is. Could you imagine if they had Jalen Ramsey and Adoree Jackson? Oh, my God. And, you know, so they got him. Calais Campbell is a monster as usual. He's proven to be just the same this year. And really the whole defense is legit, obviously, for the most part. But Blake Bortles is still their quarterback, and people can say all the nice little things about him that they want, but he just isn't that good. And, you know, fortunately, they got to play the Jets yesterday, and, you know, the Jets have their own problems, so. All right, so with all that being said, I think that's enough for me. I think I've rambled enough. Exciting quarter of the week, quarter of the season so far. A whole lot has gone down. We'll see what happens with Le'Veon Bell. Earl Thomas just broke his leg, so we'll see how that plays out. And Josh Gordon, see how he responds being in a new environment. Is it good? Is it bad? Edelman back. Mark Ingram back. A lot of things happening. I will be back in the next episode. So until next time, you guys take care. Peace.